The Galaxy S23 Ultra offers numerous likenesses with its ancestor. Updated highlights hope to fix probably the greatest grumblings with last year's lead. The inquiry is, how can it act in actuality? I was welcomed to a Samsung active occasion before the send-off of the new lead, and this is my opinion on it up until this point. Design and screen changed, however, to a great extent comparable. Design complement display than S22 Ultra. New glass protection. The main thing you could see about the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra is that it doesn't appear to be all that unique to the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, and that is basically on the grounds that it isn't. Consider the Galaxy S23 Ultra all the more a refinement of last year's design, with changes like a marginally complement front glass, with less curve to the edges to marginally extend the usable region of the 6.8 inches display, and a somewhat changed back camera setup, with somewhat thicker bezels around the camera. You must have the option to differentiate between the two in some way, isn't that so? Past the slight distinctions in design, it's a lot of the same old thing for the Galaxy S23 Ultra. It's still really weighty, meaning it will remain marginally clumsy while utilizing it one gave. However, it sits a little more pleasant in the hand, with the diminished bend on the edges. The Galaxy S Pen pointer is available and represented, again found installed inside the body of the S23 Ultra for comfort, which will jump out with a basic press, and it stays a key element restrictive to the top-end model. The accessible completions are additionally now reliable, with the remainder of the Galaxy S23 territory accessible in ghost dark, cream, green, and lavender. Truth be told, the S23 Ultra's design is currently the default across the reach, with the Galaxy S23 and S23 Plus dumping the shape camera lodging for a correspondingly moderate look. The 6, 8 and OLED displays, as could be, amazingly energetic, and point by point, and despite the fact that my active time was restricted to an indoor area, I can't predict any issues with display brilliance, even in direct daylight. There's very little that has truly changed with the display. It's actually covered at 120 Hz, highlights versatile refresh rate tech, and backing for HDR content. However, given the S22 Ultra's high-res display was truly outstanding around in 2022, this isn't exactly a deal-breaker. What's going on is the protection around that sweet display, with the Galaxy S23 Ultra, alongside the remainder of the reach, presently offering Corning's refreshed Gorilla Glass Victus 2. That Corning cases ought to more readily protect against drops onto hard surfaces like cement explicitly, yet we should accept that with a pinch of salt until further notice. It's too soon to offer conclusive viewpoints on the display, obviously. However, the contribution looks promising. Cameras: new 200-megapixel back camera, improvements to low-light photography, overhauled 12-megapixel front camera, on the off chance that there's one quickly perceptible redesign. With the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, it's without a doubt the presentation of a 200-megapixel camera, utilizing Samsung's as of late declared ISO CELLHP2, up from the generally high-res 108-megapixel snapper from last year. And it's not just a knock in numbers, all things considered. Samsung involves 1.6 and 1-pixel binning innovation to boundlessly improve detail and lighting, with low-light photography benefiting the most from the new tech. Without a devoted low-light camera testing region during the involved, I can't affirm exactly the amount of an improvement there is. However, a Samsung rep showed me a low-light shot of a vehicle taken with the S22 Ultra and S23 Ultra one next to the other, and the distinctions were emotional, as well as more light generally. Subtleties appeared to be more honed and simpler to try out. The camera arrangement likewise has the capacity to examine hair, skin, and eyes separately, which Samsung cases will provide all the more consistent with life selfies. However, differentiating at the demo event was hard. The improved 200-megapixel snapper additionally provides better video in low light, with Samsung's blend of equipment and programming hoping to provide less commotion. It's likewise ready to shoot up to 8 Kelvin. 30 Fram at a more extensive goal than its ancestor, up to 80 degrees from 57 degrees. We'll anticipate an example for proper testing before we convey a decision. Yet the 200-megapixel camera is unquestionably an area of interest. 200-megapixel snapper to the side. The Galaxy S23 Ultra accompanies the recognizable matching of a 12-megapixel ultra-wide and a couple of 10-megapixel telescope focal points at 3, 5x, and 10x separately, with few eminent changes concerning equipment. That is not an enormous problem considering the gigantic increases from the fundamental sensor, which individuals will utilize most frequently. However, seeing a genuinely new thing here would have been great. Samsung's moonshot tech is back once more, and keeping in mind that I was unable to take any photographs of the moon at the preparation. Fast shots taken on the advanced 100x zoom appear to be considerably more nitty-gritty, particularly once processed by Samsung's locally available artificial intelligence. Flip the phone over and you'll find a new 12-megapixel selfie camera, which on paper appears as though somewhat of a downsize contrasted with the 40-megapixel snapper of last year's leader. Nonetheless, it accompanies new elements like Super HDR for improved picture quality, alongside supported 60 frames video recording abilities. That ought to rise to things out. It's possible this was a transition to synchronize the forward-looking arrangement of the S23 assortment, as both the S23 and S23 Plus likewise offer similar 12MP forward-looking camera and its different redesigns. Yet we'll need to sit back and watch in the event that it's really an overhaul for the S23 Ultra. Specs and performance. Snapdragon for Galaxy. One UI 5.1 brings iPhone-like center modes. Huge 5000 mAh battery. For the beyond couple of years, Samsung has divided its smartphone presenting in a somewhat odd manner, utilizing Snapdragon chipsets for US clients and Samsung's Exynos chipset for those in Europe. That would have been fine on the off chance that the Snapdragon variation didn't outflank the Exynos variation in certain tests. However, that wasn't true. Fumed, it was just an issue for genuine nerds that know the contrast between the Exynos and Qualcomm chipsets. Yet, fortunately, this isn't true in 2023, with the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra donning the equivalent chipset regardless of where you get it, and it's a unique one as well. Samsung has worked with Qualcomm to only produce the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy for its lead range, which includes a help computer chip equipped for clock paces of up to 3.26 GHz contrasted with the 2.3 GHz of the standard Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, alongside a redesigned Adreno GPU that Qualcomm claims is both more impressive and more energy effective than the typical GPU. So, it ought to shock no one that the S23 Ultra can deal with pretty much everything you could come up with. I saw no slack or stammer during my short active time, at any rate. It'll send with Android 13 with Samsung's new One UI 5.1, which carries with it key improvements like modified modes and schedules along these lines to the iPhone's different center modes. There's additionally Bixby Text Call. That permits you to answer approaching calls by means of text totally without hands, and Samsung claims it's substantially more customizable this time around as well. Match that with an overhaul promise of 4 years of operating system updates and 5 years of safety updates, and you have a strong programming offering. Battery. With similar 5000 mAh battery as its ancestor, it'll be intriguing to perceive how long it'll keep going on a solitary charge, and whether improved battery proficiency can stretch out battery duration contrasted with the S22 Ultra, which we viewed as great, yet not momentous. Fast charging continues as before as last year at 44 watt, which is somewhat frustrating considering key leader rivals offer 100 watt charging, while possibly not more. I envision it'll require a long time to charge given the huge limit of the battery. However, I'll need to test that once an example is accessible for survey.